Okay, we're going to create a model of a truck. This is the startup file. We'll start by extruding the basic cube in a couple directions. But first we'll scale it vertically to make it a little bit shorter, make the dimensions a little bit closer to what we want them to look like. So I pressed S for scale, and then we're going to press Z to constrain it to the vertical axis, and we'll shrink it just a little bit like that. These decisions are just based on what your preferences are for how the end product will look. So now I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode. You can also go by just changing down here from object mode into edit mode. And we'll make sure we're on face select by clicking down here. We'll click on this face, hit E to extrude, bring it forward a little bit. This is going to be the front part of the truck. We'll look over here, hit E to extrude. This will be the pickup bed, maybe something like that. And then we'll click on this top face, hit E to extrude, bring this up, and something like that. We're already looking somewhat like a truck. You can imagine how it's going to look. So now what we're going to do is add a few loop cuts to the object, and this will allow us to add some glass for the windshield and the side windows. So I'm going to hit Control R, and then if you put the mouse close to any of the edges, it gives you the option to create a loop cut that is perpendicular to that edge. So we'll click here, and then click once, left click once to begin, and then you left click again once you slide it to where you want it. Something like that looks fine to me. I'm going to hit 1 for front view, and then 5 to go into orthographic view. This way I can make sure my other line looks good. I'm going to hit A to deselect, and then here's the other way to do the loop cuts. On the left side here where there are tools, you click loop cut and slide, and then you can put your mouse over here. Left click once and then slide it over so it looks about the same as the other side. That looks pretty good. These are going to be the sides of the windshield. And then I'm going to use Control R. We're going to do the same thing now for the top and bottom of the windshield. Something like that. Left click once and then left click again to set it. And then if we want to look at the back of the vehicle, you can hit Control and then 1 on the number pad. And as you can see here, the windshield also looks good on this side. So we just need to add a couple more for this part of the truck. Hit Control R again, left click once, slide it over here, and then Control R again, left click once, slide it over, left click again, and then Control R, left click once. This will be kind of like the divider to have a little window section in the back. Maybe we'll put one there, and the next one will be next to that. Okay, so now I think we'll be ready when we set it up to have the glass in those areas. Next thing we're going to do is press 3 to go into side view. We're going to play around with the profile of the truck just a little bit. I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe mode. You can also click down here. We were in solid mode, now we're in wireframe mode. Then click here to select vertices. And then we'll hit B for box select. And we'll create a little box here. And just angle this back a little bit for the windshield section. That looks good. Hit A to deselect. Then we're going to do the same thing with the front of the truck here. B for box select, and then we're just going to move the front down a little bit. All of these things should make it look a little more like an actual truck. So we're going to press Z to go back into solid mode now. So next thing we'll need to do is we could hollow out the pickup bed in the back here. We'll add a couple more loop cuts here. Control R, and then left click once, drag it over here, and then Control R again, left click, drag it in this direction. And we'll go down here for face select, choose this face, hit E for extrude, and then move it down a little bit. And it looks like we have a pickup bed now. I'm noticing that it looks pretty short in comparison to the rest of it. So we'll hit 3 for side view, and then A to deselect everything, and then we'll go back into wireframe mode. And we'll do box select and just extend the back of the truck here a little bit. That looks better to me. Okay, so now I think we're more ready to add our wheels. I just press Z again to go back into solid mode. That's a good little shortcut back and forth there. Okay, so now we're going to add wheels and wheel wells first. So we'll start by hitting tab to go back to object mode, which is really important anytime you add a new object. You can go up here and click on create and then cylinder. We've now made another cylinder. You can also just hit Shift A on your keyboard and then choose it from here. So let's just move this up here so we can see what we're doing a little bit better. And now we're going to want to rotate it along, and we're going to constrain the rotation to the y-axis. So we'll press Y, and then we can type in 90, rotates at 90 degrees, and then enter. Let's look from the front of the car now, press 1 on the number pad, and we'll want to scale this down a lot. Okay, and let's see how this looks. Press 3 on the side view. In comparison to the truck, looks a little small. We'll press S, scale it up a little bit bigger, maybe something like that. And this is going to be a little bigger than our actual wheels. This is just for our wheel wells, so maybe we'll make it even a little bit bigger. Okay, and then we'll look at it from the front view again. So obviously it's way too wide. So now we'll scale it only along the X. So press S to scale, and then X, and shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to leave it so it's sticking out a little bit from the car, just to make sure that when we create the wheel well, it does so properly. So left click to set that, and then let's take a look at the bottom of the car. If you press 7, it shows you the top. If you hold Control 7 on the number pad, it'll show us the bottom. So here's our first wheel, and we're going to create 4 of them. So we'll hit Shift D to duplicate, and then Y so that our duplicated wheel ends up where we want it to end up. Just going to click here and then go to side view and see how that looks. So this looks a little bit silly. Our first wheel is way too far. Okay, that looks better. I think we'll want to move the front forward in just a moment, but for now that looks pretty good. We'll go back to the bottom view now, and I'm going to hold Shift and select the other wheel and hit Shift D, which is going to allow me to duplicate it. So I can move these all over the place. I want to constrain them just to the X axis so that they stay in line with the other wheels, and then again they're sticking out just a little bit. Okay, so that looks good to me. Now what we're going to do is something a little bit more complicated. We're going to select the truck, and we want to add a modifier that's going to tell it to remove the part of the truck that intersects or is the difference between the truck and the cylinders that we just added. So we're going to go into generate Boolean, and under Operation, we're going to select Difference. And then the object we want it to have the difference with. Oh, actually, we're going to take a step back here. Before we can do that, since notice how there were 4 cylinders to choose from, we're going to look back at the bottom and select each of our wheels, and then come over here on the left under Tools and click Join. So that makes them into just a single object. Now we're ready to do what we were going to do before. Click back on the truck. We're in object mode. Select Boolean. Operation is difference, and then object is cylinder. So then we'll hit apply. Now if we look back at the bottom of the truck, we'll mess around with some of our wheels, and you'll see that there's an opening now. So I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode, A to deselect, and then B, I'm going to box select. Hold on, we're going to hit Z also so we can see through everything, make sure we get everything selected. So we'll select both of these wheels, hit delete, vertices. Notice how it still left something there, and then we'll hit B for box select this last wheel, delete that. And now if we look from the side here, or from the bottom, and go back to Z, you can see that we've created these wheel wells in the truck. That's where we're going to be putting our wheels. So we're going to press Z again, and we're going to select this entire, now that our object actually is just one, we can go back to this mode. We'll go back into object mode. We have our wheel selected here, and okay, something's funny. Let's go into edit mode and just hit Z. We'll box select just the wheel. Okay, and then we're going to scale this down just a little bit. Let's get our side view and make sure it looks right. So that looks about right to me. And then width-wise, looks fine. So that looks pretty good. Now we'll add some color to it. And okay, so I just pressed Z to go back into solid mode, and then we're still in edit mode. And with our face select on, we're just going to select this front face here, hit E for extrude without moving the mouse, hit enter, and then S to scale it, and we're going to shrink this down a little bit so we can create the look of an actual tire. Something like that. And then we'll add some color to this. So we're going to hit Z to go into wireframe mode, and then B for box select the whole wheel, and then Z to go back into edit mode, or sorry, Z to go back into solid, and then we're just going to hold shift and right click on the center of the wheel. That way we can make that a different color. So we're going to make everything basically black except this center part, which is going to be more of a silver color. So we'll go into our materials up here, create a new slot and a new material. We're going to go up here and choose Cycles Render. Okay, new material, we're going to name it Tire. And its color is just going to be basically black, maybe not all the way black, but pretty close. Okay, and then we're going to create or click Assign. Then we'll click Create a new slot, new material. We're going to call this one Wheel, I guess. And this time we're just going to select this inside part of the wheel, and we're going to choose a silvery, light silver, something like that, and then click Assign. And if we change the view here from solid to rendered, it should show up. We have the black tire and the silver inside. Okay, back to solid. Now all we need to do is duplicate this one. So we're going to hit Control 7 on the number pad and Z to go back to wireframe. B, box select this wheel. We're going to duplicate it by hitting Shift D and then Y to constrain it to this vertical direction, like that. Okay, we're going to hit box select again, select both wheels, duplicate these, X to move them over here. Now obviously they're facing the wrong direction now since we colored the outside, so we'll need to rotate them. So we'll click or press R on the keyboard, and then we want to rotate them about the Y-axis 180 degrees. And then we'll hit enter. Notice how they've moved a little bit. We'll just move them back into position like that. Okay, so Z to go back to solid mode, and then tab to go back to object mode. And now we have a fairly good looking wheel setup. Everything looks about right. Something that's kind of bothering me that we'll fix now, we'll select the truck again, hit tab to go into edit mode, Z, then A to deselect everything. And we'll choose vertices here, and then B for box select, and we'll select these front vertices and just scoot them out a little bit so it looks to have slightly better proportions. Okay, something like that. Oh, that looks a little bit silly actually. Maybe I'll make it a little bit shorter. Okay, that's good enough for now. We're doing pretty well. One other thing we can do is if we press Control 1 on the number pad, and then Z, and A to deselect everything, and then B, I want to move these a little bit in. So we'll hit S to scale, and then X to keep it in the horizontal direction, and just move it in a little bit. That should help it look a little more like a truck. Okay, A to deselect, Z to go back to solid mode. Now what we're going to do is add our glass. So we'll go to face select down here, and then hold shift and right click to select all of the faces here. Actually, it's probably easier to just do, we'll deselect that, go back to tab here, and just hit A to select the whole truck, and we'll color that first, and then we'll color the windshields. So we'll create a new material, we'll call it body. This can be whatever you want that color of your truck to be. We can make it maybe like a dark gray blue color, and just for fun we can make it a little bit glossy. Set our roughness to 0.5. Let's click assign and then see how that looks in the render view. Okay. So that looked really bad in the render view, but that's because we needed to add some lighting. So we'll add, I hit Shift A to add, and then we'll add a plane. Let's move it up here. We'll scale it, make it a little bit bigger here, rotate it a little bit like that, and then we'll set the material on this to emission, and then strength 10. Now if we go to view our truck, we should be able to get a better sense of what the color looks like. Okay, kind of a dark blue, slightly glossy. It looks fine to me. So now we'll go back to solid, hit tab, right click the truck in object mode and then hit tab to go into edit mode. Now we will let's hide this plane so it doesn't get in the way. We'll select all the faces that we want to be the glass. Okay, and then we'll create a new material slot, new material, we'll call it glass. And material, we'll select glass. And we'll set the roughness. You can play around with these numbers to see how it looks. To 0.1 and the IQR to 2. And the color, I don't know, we could select maybe give it a slightly blue tint. Okay, I think we're doing pretty well now. Let's make that plane appear again, and let's hit 0 to look at our camera view. Okay, our camera view is horrible because we need to move this plane out of the way a little bit. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger too, and then we'll go back to our camera view. So we'll zoom in a little bit just so the viewing window's like this, and then we'll press N to open our properties, select lock camera to view. Now if we move it, we'll update, actually move the camera. So let's press N, let's do an initial render, see how it looks. Let's see, our sampling down here is at 10. So it'll just be a very basic look. Okay, looks pretty good. I think we could have a little bit brighter light on the truck, or maybe choose a lighter color for it. Also, the windshield's not showing up very well. So let's choose our plane here and make it a little bit bigger. See how our rendered look. Yeah, so that helped a little bit. The glass on the truck is still not looking that good. So let's select here. Maybe we forgot to click assign. Let's see how it looks now. Yeah, that looks better. And then just for fun, I'm going to make this color a little bit brighter. It's yeah, there we go. Okay, so we've got a basic truck. You could play around with it however you like, but in general, if we were to render it now, maybe we'd render it with a higher sample rate here, say 100, and let's see how it turns out. Alright, so it looks pretty good. You can play around with the body, add more details to it to create the shape that you're looking for that looks a little bit more like a truck maybe. But overall, we got a basic form of a truck.